Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another incredible guest to reintroduce you today. Dr. Gary Fettke is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out his first appearance on Boundless Body Radio on episode 314, along with his amazing wife, Belinda, who he also hosted on episode 384. Dr. Gary Fettke is an orthopedic surgeon who practiced medicine in Tasmania. Gary is an advocate of a low carbohydrate, healthy fat lifestyle for various health benefits, including the reversal of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and many other chronic diseases. Belinda and Gary opened the Nutrition for Life Diabetes and Health Research Center, which provides nutritional care around Tasmania and Australia. He has been speaking out on the combined role of sugar, particularly fructose, refined grains, and polyunsaturated oils in the epidemic of inflammation and modern diseases. He had incurred the wrath of several Australian regulatory bodies for his health advice, which included the reduction of sugar for diabetic patients. He and his wife Belinda actively uncovered the corrupt vested interests and ideologies shaping nutritional guidelines at the policy level in Australia and beyond. Gary is also the author of the book Inversion, One Man's Answer for World Peace and Global Health. Dr. Gary Fettke, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Yeah, I think it's good morning here, good afternoon for you, Casey.
That's right. And it's also a lot warmer where you are. And as we were talking offline, very cold here.
I always think it's funny because, we're in the future here for you.
That's right. How is the future?
The future's looking pretty good out there.
That's great. That's great. I needed some optimism around here when it's freezing cold and will not stop snowing around here in the Salt Lake area.
The sun's out, it's going to be the wind's down, and I'm going to be heading out into the paddocks and doing some slashing and mowing a little bit later.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I think last time we had you on, I said in the introduction that you were still practicing and you are now retired. Is that correct?
I've retired from clinical practice.
Gotcha.
Multiple decisions for that, but essentially I was struggling to go to work.
Wow.
I was very frustrated by a whole lot of things that were happening, particularly around diet, hospital food.
Yeah.
I felt there were so many people I didn't need to operate on when we just address their nutrition. So, struggling, people would come in for an operation and go, actually, I don't think you need it.
Yeah.
Particularly around arthritis of the knee. And I know this is a true story because I put it on Twitter.
That's how you know.
I had 8 patients 1 week who'd literally given up sugar, carbs, gone low carb in the previous 6 to 8 weeks, all with bare bone arthritis in their knees. And all of them, if they had have seen any of my colleagues, would have had knee replacement. And I had 8 come back in a week that all said they had no pain before they'd lost weight.
Wow.
I've got a mate with a shoulder surgeon in Queensland who's actually stopped practicing because he actually encouraged all of his patients with rotator cuff troubles, arthritic problems in the shoulder as well as tendon issues, encouraged them all to go low carb keto. And he said, I'll book you in for surgery in 8 weeks. And 3/4 of them cancelled their surgery because they got better.
Wow.
And the quarter that hadn't done it.
Wow.
So, I'm not saying that you can cure all, like these patients with osteoarthritis of their knee, they all had terrible looking x-rays. But anyway, it's such a powerful tool that we're not encouraging enough.
Yep.
I was very frustrated by the COVID, I'll call it mismanagement, disinformation, everything flapping around. I had 3 emails from my hospital within 2 hours saying, this is a new COVID policy. And then an hour later, this is a new COVID policy. And an hour later,
Wow.
This is a new COVID policy. And you can't, I felt that some of it was irrational. And I came up with a list of 37 things to do around COVID management. And I thought you should actually be able to make a decision. I don't care where you stand on all those things, but you should be able to make an informed decision about where these were. And
Sure.
a lot of things the hospitals were doing, just some were sensible, some were completely irrational. Like one hospital, you could actually visit a patient for 15 minutes. Another hospital, you could visit them for 2 hours. Another hospital, you could visit them for 4 hours. Well, hang on, what time? Because all this stuff is just being made up. Anyway, so I was very frustrated with all that. And the long and the short of it is, I'm now pretty well full-time professional agitator. So
It
we're
was
doing a
just
lot of.
part-time before, so now you
It
have
was
more time for it.
part-time, but part-time amateur, but now a full-time professional. So we do a lot of work with mentoring. There are a lot of people caught up with the medical regulator over a variety of issues, and there's not a week that goes by that I'm not supporting someone. A few in the low carb space who are still being challenged because they're actually advocating low carb, carnivore, real food, which is just unbelievable that we're still in that space.
Yeah.
We're challenged in the universities. We had a big win here in Australia last year with the National Diabetes Strategy. We now have low carb as an option in putting type 2 diabetes into remission.
Amazing.
We've also got a review of the Australian dietary guidelines underway, and there was a whole lot of things that happened leading up to that, of which we had a central role.
Wow.
So we're probably off the front page of stuff now.
Well,
But we're doing a lot of work behind the scenes. I still encourage anyone in the world who's going to have a debate, discussion, meeting with any authority, and I'm going to throw Belinda underneath the bus here, contact Belinda to find out their vested interests before they go into a debate. And so we have been supporting people in that scenario. So I was involved in a major debate here in Australia last year. And one of the great things is the people I was debating against, I knew exactly what their vested interests were and called them out at the beginning, which made it a pretty ugly scenario for the night.
right.
Defamation lawyers involved within 48 hours.
Wow.
And it all blew up into a storm, but the result of it was it actually came to a head. And here we've got diabetes, and particularly low carb, being discussed in the most senior levels of the endocrinologists here in Australia.
Wow.
But so that sort of thing's critical, because so we're doing that behind, so we didn't make a song and dance about that. We're not publicly saying, oh, look, here we're giving lectures in this forum, but being able to debate that material. So now we feel pretty strongly that there's a bad message about cancer, red meat causing cancer. Well, that's just complete nonsense. Based on bad science, vested interests, and guideline committees that were being swayed by vegan vegetarians. When you start going into this stuff, you actually find that vested interests are such a powerful role to play. We're also looking to work with, we could say work with the Heart Foundations about changing their message around saturated fats. Work with the cancer associations about changing their message about junk food being bad and actually stop demonizing red meat. Let's start talking about remission with type 2 diabetes. And not surprisingly, all of that takes time.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you have the time. And like I said, you are retired from, clinical work, as you informed us, but yeah, still very, very busy, very active. You were telling me yesterday you were shoveling concrete for 5 hours, a little bit tired today, but man, as healthy as I've ever seen you. You look great. You took up, correct me if I got this wrong. Did you take up golf or did you retake up golf?
I retook up golf.
Okay.
Yeah. So people, golf, I find the most fascinating thing. It's a game against yourself. If you're in a competition with someone else, they might get in the way, but it's literally against yourself. The thing I love about golf, it's probably one of the, I won't say the only, but one of the very few things you can do in life where you are completely and utterly responsible for the outcomes of your actions. You've got
That's right.
no one else to blame. It's a ridiculous thing. You pick a stick of your choosing, your quality, your whatever you want, and you hit a stationary object somewhere down there into a small hole. But you can decide as to when you want to go out. You can go out in the snow if you want to play, right? You can go out there. You can pick up that ball and you can actually decide, I'll hit it now or hit it later. You're going to take all these other things and nothing else can get into your head. So the moment you start thinking about work or whether or not I'm about to do a podcast with Casey and not Bethany, where is she, by the way? And then all of that, something's going to go wrong. So it requires complete relaxation of the mind, which somewhat might call meditation. Sure, it comes with a fair degree of frustration, but I get frustrated as much by the bad shot as I do by the good shot. So the good shot goes, oh, crikey, how did I do that? And so anyway, so I've achieved my goal with a few other things that gotten down to single figures again, which makes me competitive, and so I've regained almost my handicap of 25 years ago. So
wow, good for you! Congratulations.
But again, it's a personal challenge. You've got to keep fairly flexible. It's an aerobic walkout. It's still a 7, 8, 9 kilometer walk. So I mean, you're still socializing. There's still a fair amount of sledging. I'm a great. Do you have the term sledging in the US?
I have not. I was going to ask you. No.
Sledging is teasing.
Okay.
We call it bagging out sledging. Like it's
sledging.
Someone
I like that.
And there's quite a few of my old patients are actually on the golf course. I used to play golf. We have a crossover tee between the 9th and the 18th, and there wasn't a week that goes by when I didn't actually tee up an operation, literally on that, because someone, there'd be 8 guys there, and they'd say, and someone would tell me about their shoulder or their knee or whatever. So I'd come along and see me, we'll sort it out. Anyway, I was playing golf with a couple of old codgers, because I'm actually in the veterans now. I'm old enough to be a veteran. You've only got to be over 55. So I'm well and truly a vet. Anyway, so I'm playing there, and there were 2 guys that I was playing with, and they said they'd both seen me, and one had had a finger trouble, and the other guy had come to see me with his backache. And I said, what did I, and he said, I remember seeing you. You told me I had to lose weight. And you told me I was, in fact, carrying a slab of beer under each arm, which is, a slab of beer in Australia is 10 kilos, which is 22 pounds or something.
Heavy, yeah.
So I used to, and in my office, I actually had a slab of beer. So I'd actually go and hand it to people and say, you're carrying this around. You do not need to carry. I get them to carry it and say, do you enjoy carrying that around unnecessarily?
Wow.
Anyway, so I'd said to this guy, are you carrying, you're carrying a slab of beer around under each arm, what a waste. That's why you got a backache. Anyway, so he was coming up to having this golf swing, and he'd reminded me about the fact that I'd seen him. So I said, well, you clearly didn't listen to me, did you? Literally he's about to have his backswing. So I've just told him he's still 20 kilos overweight. So that's called sledging.
Sledging.
I didn't say to him he's fat. I said the sledge is, you didn't listen to me, did you? About the 2 slabs of beer. So that's we have a game in cricket, of cricket here in Australia, which is another ridiculous game with a leather ball and bat, and someone runs in and hurls a ball. Not dissimilar to baseball, but baseball normally ends up with a conclusion. In cricket, you can play for 5 days and not end up with a result.
Right, crazy.
And that it's called, it's a draw, but nonetheless, it's actually some of the most exciting finishes in cricket are actually a draw. So with that, unless you're English or Australian, Indian, Pakistan, South African, most people in the US don't understand cricket. Anyway, so that's a game, because if you've got 5 days to actually compete against someone, there's a lot of sledging and yap going on.
I love that. That's great. In ice hockey, we call that chirping. We would say chirp back and forth.
That would be the US equivalent.
There we go. That's great. Keeps you humble. It keeps you right on level. Doesn't let your head get too big. It's great.
and so therefore, again, golf is about self-control. And I don't think anybody should ever you should never employ someone unless you've had a round of golf with them and maybe a drink in the bar afterwards. Because what you do is you see how someone handles themselves when things go wrong and they've got no one else to blame.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea.
And the other one is then when you actually go to the bar and or have a drink afterwards, and you see how they work and how they relate to someone who serves them. And I had a lot of service jobs as a medical student, and so some people would, most people are great, but some people are incredibly rude. So I think that they're two great levelers.
I love that.
Because Eric Westman's not here to bag, I'll sledge Eric whilst we're having a chat. So Eric, myself, Georgia Reed were invited to give talks at the first Southeast Asian low carb meeting. So it was low carb Indonesia.
Wow.
And so we went there, and our hosts were very kindly put us up for a couple of days in Bali on the way as we all left. So we had a great time, just the Indonesian speakers and ourselves, because great friendships. But anyway, it was stinking hot. So over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the stinking hot humidity, and we're in Bali, and Eric and I decided to go off and play golf. So we held the inaugural international low carb golf championship.
Amazing.
And Eric represented the Northern Hemisphere, and I represented the Southern Hemisphere.
Fantastic.
And so the trophy resides, non-existent trophy, resides in the Southern Hemisphere.
Ah, nice. That's amazing.
We were hot. And Eric, I don't know, have you ever heard Eric sing?
I have not. No.
Eric has a great voice, and he holds a tune. So his sledging was completely distracting. He's singing his way around the golf course. So he's a much better singer than he is a golfer. But anyway, we'll just leave it at that.
That's
I'm
amazing.
a better golfer than singer, so I'll leave that one at that.
That's amazing. In the future, nobody's going to be talking about the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup. They're going to be talking about this tournament, and you were the winner of the first annual. That's going to go down in history. Amazing.
Well, no,
congratulations.
I don't know if it's the first annual, because we haven't repeated it because of COVID. So we'll say it's the inaugural.
There you go. The trophy stays in the Southern Hemisphere. That's awesome.
I might Gary, have to do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to make one. I'll make one and send it to you.
No, I'll send it across to Eric, and we'll say, I'll give him the replica, give him the runners-up one.
There we go. Fantastic. I will do that. I'm going to Low Carb Denver here in a month, so I'll make a runner-up second place, and I'll give it to him there. That's fantastic. That's a great idea.
He'll appreciate it. There'll be no doubt there'll be an email or a message coming through straight after that.
Long distance sledging. I love it.
but as long as you give him the trophy for the better singing.
Oh yeah, good call. Good call. Okay. I will give him a trophy for that as well. That's fantastic. Okay. Last time we had you on, you and Belinda got to tell your story, and I think most people at this point are familiar with it, but I still think it's fair and so powerful to hear your story. How did an orthopedic surgeon get involved with dietary guidelines?
It's hard to put it down in 10 seconds or so, but essentially I was a fat kid, struggled with my weight and health over a long period of time. And then in my clinical practice, realized how strong and powerful diet is, particularly around diabetes management. So in my practice, I was looking after most of the diabetic foot complications in northern Tasmania for 20 years. And they were it just got more and more. And I'm actually helping setting up diabetes foot clinics in other states in Australia at the moment, because the local, people don't have local expertise. So I'm actually helping them from interstate.
Wow.
Which is crazy, but because it's totally out of control. Anyway, so I had patients in hospital where I'm trying to control their diabetes. I'm thinking about amputating or actually ultimately amputating, and they're being served ice cream 3 times a day. And that was the moment where I went, hang on, whoa, we can do something about this. And so that was one of the parts of starting my interest in sugar, particularly fructose. I had my own personal cancer story. And so that whole process meant that I started really, really looking at that. And then I started looking at sugar, and particularly fructose, then became the seed oils, how they tied in with it, and then how the carbohydrates came in. So everyone sort of thinks, oh, it's pretty simple now, but I'm very proud of the fact that I'll literally say I described first that model of modern disease based on nutrition, which is that combination of fructose, refined carbohydrates, of which 40% of them get turned into fructose, and then they become a whole lot of material which once becomes oxidized with polyunsaturated oils becomes highly inflammatory, and therefore that puts inflammation in every blood vessel wall, mitochondrial membrane, every corner of the body, and inflammation sits behind all modern disease. So all I'd ever describe was a model of that, because it's impossible to do a double-blind controlled trial over 50 or 100 years because you can't control for all that. So it's purely a theoretical model. But if you do the opposite of that, which is you stop the sugar intake, you stop the refined carbohydrates, you stop the polyunsaturated seed oils, you start reversing the entire insulin response, then people get better and healthier. So again, only ever a model, but because I might have just hit the nail on the head and I had a strong message, I ended up getting targeted by the food industry, particularly the cereal industry here in Australia. We thought it was the sugar industry, first of all, but they were probably hand in hand. I've managed to upset the pharmaceutical industry because we can de-prescribe people off medications. I've managed to upset enough orthopaedic colleagues because I've actually stood up and said, actually, we don't need to operate on as many people. I got targeted for even by some of the people in the Orthopaedic Association. Oh, you're fat shaming people. No, I said I'm not fat shaming anyone. I'm giving people a tool to improve their health and avoid the knife, or at least delay the knife. So part of that is you need to be an orthopaedic surgeon and arrogant enough to do this. Like, I'm right. I actually know I'm right. It's based on biochemistry, science. And if you know you're right and you're doing the right thing by your patients, you've just got to stand the line. But I had no idea I was going to get into so much trouble. I don't think I'm stupid, but I'm clearly naive. I thought this is so obvious. It'll all be over in 6 months, maybe 12. And here, I think we're 12, 13 years down the track.
Yeah.
You've got to feel for Belinda because, if we talk, we talk to people now about low carb, healthy fat. And I'm glad you use that term because I think I much prefer the term low carb, healthy fat rather than high fat. And not just low carb, but low carb, healthy fat. And, I call that evolution of diet. You go from the SAD, everyone eating crap food. They think, okay, we'll move to the standard, the food pyramid or the food plate or whatever. There are some that decide to go vegan, which is fine because they've got an interest in their own health, but ultimately they'll be nutrient deficient and they'll come back and everyone moves towards low carb, healthy fat, like real food. Then you've got those hardcorers that want to go to keto, and then you've got a group that go hardcore onto carnivore.
Yeah.
And everyone's got different reasons, for doing that. Belinda lost a finger as a kid. And so she's done a lot of camera work as a photographer with her other finger, and it's become a bit arthritic after decades. Anyway, she's just gone, she said, okay, I want to do hardcore carnivore. I'm letting the cat out of the bag. So she did that because we've been LCHF for a long, long time, keto.
Yeah.
But she said, I'm going to go carnivore. I'm just going to drop all of those.
Wow. What did she notice? Is it working?
Yeah, everything got better within about 4 or 5 days. Yeah. But so there's someone who's actually been, eating well, but found even added benefit for just going carnivore.
Yeah. I was just thinking in, the beginning of this discussion where you're talking about trying to get sugar out of the diets for people's joints. If you're not familiar with low carbohydrate, keto, carnivore, you would think that is a little wild. That must be hyperbole. That must be a little over the top. He's exaggerating. But once you've been in this world for a while, especially the carnivore world, you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. All of that makes perfect sense. I've seen it over and over and over. All of these many conditions improve when we start eating the right food. It's amazing that she did the same thing and noticed within days that she was feeling better.
And she wasn't high carb. And if people want to know the science behind that, I actually did a talk on that. It's on YouTube, Carbohydrate, the dose is the poison. And I've given that in a few forums, but it is on YouTube. And because we're talking low carb, I thought, okay, I get into trouble anyway. So I thought, actually, I'll go and say, let's try and define what is the toxic dose. Okay, if you're realistically saying, okay, everyone's going around, oh, carbs are bad, I'm going to look and see, okay, what dose does it become poison? Because the dose is the poison.
Yeah.
So by definition, I said, okay, carbohydrate, when does it have a negative impact on the body? And when it has a negative impact on the body, then it's toxic. So I made an academic argument. It's been seen hundreds of thousands of times. I made an academic argument for 4 grams or 1 teaspoon of glucose being toxic.
That's the dose.
That's the dose, because at that dose, and I'll come back to the joints in a second, it starts, if you change your philosophy on it, the body does everything in its power to get glucose out of the bloodstream. Because every time the blood glucose goes up, it causes damage. First, it causes damage to the glycocalyx, which is the lining of every blood vessel, which allows the red cells and to move through, even right through the capillaries. That glycocalyx is critical. Raise the blood glucose gets damaged. People with diabetes, chronically thin glycocalyx, which is a bit like the equivalent of the gut lining. If you actually get lots of tight junction damage, then you get a whole lot of inflammation because proteins get through the gut wall. But the same thing actually happens with the blood vessel wall. And the glycocalyx is the biggest organ in the body. It's bigger than the skin. It's massive. And then, so therefore, the other thing is I often talk about the Maillard reaction. I think we talked about that in the past, that browning of food. So that's, in fact, the Maillard reaction is when glucose in food, so if you get a piece of bread and you put it in the toaster, under the effect of heat, the glucose combines with the protein. It's a glycation of protein and it goes brown. Well, the same thing happens in our tissue. When your blood glucose goes up, your tissue glucose goes up. And then under the effect of body heat, we're effectively getting the Maillard reaction. We're effectively getting toasting of our brain, our kidneys, our eyes. Every organ of the body gets toasted when your blood glucose goes up. So the body has this incredible mechanism to get rid of glucose out of the bloodstream. It's called insulin. The blood glucose goes up, trigger, straight, bang, let's get the insulin on board and actually get it out of the bloodstream. And it pushes it into the tissues. Now, insulin is great for actually getting glucose out of the bloodstream and putting it into fat storage, which is great because in nature, when you actually get access to glucose or carbohydrate, which is effectively only fruit and honey in season, there's no beehives that are active around your place at the moment.
No, there's not.
And there's no fruit on the trees. And the only other natural source of carbohydrate is breast milk. So those sources there, your body produces insulin, turns it into fat for storage. But the other troublesome thing about insulin is it's also a growth hormone. So it's a major growth hormone for cancer. So we're living in this society now, which is just getting carbohydrate all the time, high insulin states, then insulin resistant. But that high insulin state is probably a major driver of cancer. I'm not saying it's the cause of cancer. We can talk about that from an inflammation point of view, but a driver of cancer, an ongoing cancer, is actually insulin. So I'd like to think everyone who's got cancer goes into a low insulin environment. I'm not saying it's going to cure cancer, but at least stop stimulating it and allow the body's T cells. And things like, fructose gets turned into alcohol in the liver. Alcohol is an inhibitor of T cell function. T cells are the first line of defense against viruses. And it's also the first major way affected the T killer cells in cancer management. So we put people in these high sugar environments with cancer or COVID, and we're inhibiting our own immunity to actually settling them down. So the insulin, and the third thing which insulin does, which actually came out of China in 2020, so everyone blames, COVID for and Wuhan 2020, but the great research that came out of there, and I've talked about it, but it didn't come out of a low carb environment because they looked at insulin and osteoarthritis of the knee. So insulin actually stimulates the synoviocytes in the knee, which are the inflammatory cells, to make the arthritis worse. Wow. So if you drop the insulin dose, the inflammation settles. If you raise the insulin, the inflammation gets worse. So in a practical term, if you actually put people in a low insulin environment, with their osteoarthritis of the knee, their knee pain gets better. And in a practical term, in a keto world, in a carnivore world, we see that all the time. But if you actually get down to the tissue level and look inside the cartilage of the knee, the cartilage is made up of a whole lot of proteins and things called glucosaminoglycans, which are combinations of sugars, carbohydrate, proteins. The end products of glucose metabolism, that Maillard reaction, that glycation of proteins and the damage is actually there in cartilage. You do not find the end products of protein damage in cartilage. You do not find the end products of fat metabolism in cartilage. You only find the end products of glucose metabolism. And if you look at pre-agricultural skeletons, I've got a friend who's right into this stuff. And if you look at pre-agricultural revolution, their skeletons, very low rates of arthritis. So if you go to those archaeologists, those museums, they'll say, oh, that's pre-agricultural revolution, that's post-agricultural revolution. They literally look at it. They can just see it from the joints, see it from the teeth. That early agricultural revolution, no teeth, because they tried mashing. It wasn't until they then had to start processing it by grinding it. And with that advent, then we started then getting the inflammation. You can arguably track osteoarthritis to the migration of the potato from South America through to Europe and then around the rest of the world. Osteoarthritis tracked the potato.
Wow, so fascinating.
So, and then again, when you come to the tendon damage in the shoulder, we talked about that earlier, the end products of glucose metabolism are in tendons as well. So people with rotator cuff troubles, Achilles tendonitis, the classics, even wrist tendonitis, even carpal tunnel syndrome, the problems with the hands, it's all just inflammation, glucose metabolism, side effects. So again, this all comes back to carbohydrate, the dose is the poison. So we're seeing changes at a tissue, at a blood vessel lining level. We're seeing it at a tissue level. We're seeing it at a joint level. We're seeing it at a tendon level. We're seeing it at an insulin driving level. So to me, and we start provoking that insulin response at 4 grams.
Wow.
So that's how I came up with the number. So what's fascinating is people may not like it, but they haven't actually argued against it. It's what was that Al Gore's message, an inconvenient truth. Whether or not he was right or wrong, that's I've just opened up Pandora's box off.
Yeah, exactly.
There. I go, whoa, let's
exactly.
not go there. But it is an inconvenient truth. Here is glucose metabolism. I'm not making this stuff. That talk's all completely referenced. People can go, it's just biochemistry. And it's biochemistry that almost the entire medical profession has overlooked.
Yep.
Our degrees are based in biochemistry. This isn't, I keep talking about the Krebs cycle. This is the basic biochemistry I'm talking about. This isn't the fine print in the biochemistry textbook. This is the basic. Our bodies, our cells, our mitochondria will survive just as happily on protein, fats, and as well as carbohydrate, as long as you're getting the micronutrients in.
Yep.
The micronutrients are going to be complete. The proteins are going to be complete. The healthy fats are going to be complete if they're animal-based.
Yep.
They'll be incomplete if they're plant-based.
That's right.
And again, I'm sorry if I'm going to upset the plant-based system, culture, propaganda, but that's it. You get complete healthy fats, proteins, micronutrients, and all the energy requirements you get from an animal-based diet.
Yeah.
And I'm not about factory farming. Let's talk about a symbiotic, respectful relationship, care for our animals, start cropping, start using our land better, because we've got all these grasslands which are actually fire risks here in Australia. There's a big push big push. The meat lobby here in Australia have an ongoing offer to farm through our national forests their cattle. not over farm them, not overgraze them, just actually let them graze the undergrowth, decrease the fire risk. It'll be the same thing in California. You guys, we see on the news, California's on fire again.
Yeah.
You just get the animals in there, let them graze down. And everyone will say, that's not the natural. Okay, put a few bison back in there. I don't care how you do it.
That's right.
Start grazing it in a more respectful, I'll use the term regenerative agriculture way. And we can start actually, and there's the amount of arable land on the planet, because that's another pet topic of mine, is the environmental aspect. Because if people say, you want to talk about animal-based, you're bad for the environment. Well, actually, no, we're not. The biggest agricultural export in the world is topsoil related to our farming practices, and the farming practice is plant-based. Whether or not we're arguing plant-based, for the people or arguably for feedlot, we've got this opportunity to move our farming practices back into that marginal grasslands, which, the mountain slopes, the hilltops, which can't be farmed and ploughed. Let's actually think about that in a better way.
Yeah.
We've got all these answers. It's just all completely confounded by propaganda.
Such a shame. It's all such a shame. Such a wonderful natural solution that would have happened throughout all of our evolution with all kinds of different ruminants, way bigger ones than we know now, way more of them than we have now, just doing what they do. And they work symbiotically with the plants and produce really high quality fat and protein. I do want to ask you about something. Honest question, really. So you mentioned that, like, around me right now, I'm not going to find carbohydrates. I'm not going to find fruits growing. I'm not going to find honey. Where you are, it's kind of getting into the middle part of the summer. You have lots of lush, beautiful plants growing all over the place. I'm assuming there's lots of different species. Even for you, would it be very easy or difficult for you to live plant-based if you were to just go outside in the summer where you are and live on plants?
We've mistakenly, I've got a vegetable garden at home because I've got lots of possums and wallabies around. It's actually a cage. I mean, it was, because most people know me, I'm a bit OCD. So when we build a cage around the vegetable garden, it's a cage. Okay. I wish we had it when the kids were little, because lock them in there.
There you go. Good call.
The dog gets put in there when the grandkids come around because the youngest grandchild doesn't like the dog jumping up. But anyway, so the dog gets put in there. But essentially, we've got raspberries and strawberries coming up, and there's some tomatoes, and the grandkids get in there and raid them. I'm okay with that. And because we actually got the house on the market at the moment, I have got vegetables planted in there because I'll admit the market, like most people, haven't gotten informed. I don't have. I don't have wildebeest and bison in my vegetable garden. Okay. So and it's really hard to grow vegetables. I mean, you've got to turn the soil. There's weeds in there. You've got to keep a lot of water up to it. And I look at it and go, because if we've got a good sized vegetable garden, I'm not going to get enough calories just from what I'm producing myself.
Absolutely.
And it's hard work. So the only way we're going to get enough vegetables is to become an industrial, which is going to involve lots of water, lots of soil, lots of chemicals. Whereas just outside the vegetable garden, okay, we do live on some acreage. And I've shown you the view here today.
Beautiful.
I've got 35 sheep, of which in the summer, they barely drink water. So that's it. They just roam around and they do their stuff. And I go and just, they're all still alive, and just go and check on them. But literally, there is an enormous feast grazing on marginal land which you can't crop because it's too steep, versus a vegetable garden, which for my undertaking is completely unsustainable. And it's a real treat for going out into the garden and going picking your produce. But as to it being sustainable for me, to actually create enough variety and enough volume. And I know some people will say, oh, you can do that. And I know someone who's actually, turned his backyard, and it's an intensive cropping process, but a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so we've all become completely distanced from our food source. Vast majority of people have no idea, and you go, whether or not you're talking about food miles, you've got oranges from California or bananas from Brazil or whatever. Just, the amount of food miles involved in that, the amount of transport. Like, you'll be able to go to your supermarket in Utah now and actually buy fruit.
Yeah, easy, right now.
Yeah.
Papaya, mangoes, star fruit. Those didn't come from here.
It's just, well, even mangoes, for instance, fruit's been made to have improved shelf life and transportability. They've brought the fiber content down. They've increased the sugar content. Sugar's a preservative, because the more sugar you put, like a bit of raisin bread, the more sugar, your fruit cake, your Christmas cake, your wedding cakes, lots of fruit in it, and it's still edible a year down the track. So they've pushed up the sugar content of fruit. They've decreased the fiber content. And that's all about transport and profitability. That's all in my talk on fruit. Is fruit good or bad for you?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is fruit good or bad for you? I stole it right from that talk.
Well, again, that ended up, I get myself into pockets of trouble. I was asked to have a discussion about fruit. There were three people: a professor of nutrition here in Australia, who was the advisor for the Defence Forces, myself, and a third person. The third person dropped out. And so about 10 days beforehand, they said, oh, can you make it a debate? And so, can you take up the contrary? And I thought, I said, okay. And then about a week out, I went, oh my goodness, I'm actually about to debate the topic of fruit against a professor of nutrition. Anyway, about halfway through my talk, he conceded defeat.
Wow.
Even he actually was talking about how they'd been manipulated to do this, that, and the other thing. And so halfway through my talk, I ultimately turned that into a YouTube talk as well. And fruit, as I say, is not as healthy for us as it's advertised to be, either in nature or in the shops. I'll say, I think it has, if you want to eat fruit, it's going to have an effect on you. First of all, it's going to drive behavior because it's got a high fructose component. And fructose actually stimulates the brain for you to eat more, which is what it's meant to do in nature. It will also give you the trots, make your bowels open. And if you actually start thinking about what does the fruit want from us rather than what we want from the fruit, it's actually quite interesting. So we love fruit because it's one of the natural sources of carbohydrate. And if you're a bear and an animal and you're starving, and at the end of summer, when you haven't gone through much food and these fruits ripen and you've got winter coming, then fruit comes onto the trees and we want to stuff our faces with it so we get fat for winter hibernation. Perfect. Fruit is great for our survival if we don't combine it with fruit all year round or sugar all year round. And it's great if we certainly don't combine it with seed oils, which are highly inflammatory. And that all comes back into my nutrition inflammation talks. But effectively, so fruit is a great survival mechanism and it drives behavior. So if you want to eat fruit, understand that you're going to be hungry. So we will have some seasonal berries. We've got some strawberries growing in the garden at the moment, some blueberries. We'll have some, but I'll have them. And when I'll have some seasonal berries with a bit of granola, I know that's not strict carnivore, but cream and a dry mix of nuts and seeds. But when I have some fruit, I will have 3 blueberries. I'm not having a bowl of them. I'll have a strawberry, which has come out of the garden. It's literally that amount. It's not a. But I'll have it at night because I know if I have it in the morning, I'm going to be hungry.
Hungry.
Several hours.
Yep.
So I understand the biochemistry. So I'm going to sleep off my hunger. So the other thing about fruit is what fruit wants from us. So fruit actually wants, it advertises itself as bright, shiny, eye-catching. So you as an animal will find it. It advertises itself by being really sweet. So because it knows the sugar in it will drive behavior. Well, essentially, I'm saying fruit's an intelligent, life form. It wants us to eat it as animals so we can propagate its seed, not realizing that we propagate it into a ceramic bowl.
Right.
But it also affects our gut lining and gives us an inflammatory bowel condition, so it increases or decreases the transit time through the gut. It's fascinating, but but it's completely designed to actually get our bowels going, so we can move the seed into another area. Likewise, I can't remember who it was now. I should actually try and remember. Whether or not grain is more intelligent than mankind. Have you seen any of that stuff?
Kind of the idea that like grains domesticated us versus we domesticated grain.
Yeah, I've got to look up who the original theorist about that. It's just interesting, and what it means is we live in a symbiotic relationship with our environment, and we've moved our farming practices down certain pathways which seem reasonable, and the agricultural revolution comes with the benefit of civilization. It comes with the benefit of us organizing ourselves into communities rather than hunter-gatherers and tribespeople. And it comes, with the benefit / bad side of actually having then politicians, to govern us. But
right.
So civilization is a result of an agricultural revolution, and our artworks and our monuments and our music and our golf courses, sort of all come as a result of an agricultural revolution. So it's sort of stepping back one bit and going, actually, let's look. That's why I keep coming back to biochemistry. How does food drive our behavior, and drive civilization? Because it clearly does, and we've just forgotten about that central role about it and how. And so, therefore, we've had an evolutionary diet which has gotten us theoretically to the top of the food chain. But in the last 100 years, we've become to a industrial revolution, and now I'll say a highly processed revolution, which has tipped us over the precipice. And I don't know if we can get back from there. That's the depressing side of it. However, you as an individual can make that choice today, can take back control of your life today, for your family as well, to actually then move back towards, actually, I'm going to do this for myself and my family. I'm going to improve my health and well-being. And I keep coming back to COVID because COVID was just a fascinating example. The most overlooked portion of COVID is those people with poor metabolic health did poorer. So the biggest risk factors were age, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, medicated people. Why? The latest stuff out of the US, a couple of months old now, is 93.2% of the population are now metabolically unwell. 93.2%, less than 7% of the population. 2 years ago, that figure was estimated at 88.9 or something. It's gone backwards, and it's no different here in Australia and most Western societies. Most, I'll say, medicated societies have had poor metabolic health, and we should be addressing this. This is the big issue. Let's address our primary metabolic health issues, and then people will respond better to COVID. I'm like, what are we going to do with the next COVID comes along, or the next variant, or whatever? It's going to be the same problems. It's poor metabolic health is the biggest determinant of outcome. I know what happens to a white cell. I know what happens to a T cell when you have sugar and carbs hit it.
Yeah.
If you make an inflamed body, then you're going to. So I've seen some really rough data about, and mostly anecdotal, about those people who have been running low carb, keto, carnivore, have had less issues with COVID than those who are at the other end of the spectrum. That is, I don't know the answer to it, but I know that there's things that you can do as an individual make a big difference to your immunity.
Yeah.
I happen to know that alcohol inhibits your immunity. I happen to know that alcohol inhibits the ability for the body to break down fat. The triglycerides are broken down by glucagon, the carbohydrate, and glucagon is inhibited, is secondarily inhibited by alcohol. So if you drink alcohol, you're not going to be able to burn fat. And it's not in the old story is, once I gave up alcohol, I could lose weight. Well, the biochemistry all comes back to glucagon and triglycerides and fat breakdown. So I'm sorry, if people want to lose weight and they're drinking alcohol, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or it's going to happen slower. But fructose gets converted to alcohol as well. So I mean, it's all the same stuff, and it's all unarguable. But the moment it gets to a review board, or it gets to a guideline committee, or it comes to government, it's all politicized and monetized.
Yeah, you said it so well when you said it's an inconvenient truth. A lot of people don't want to hear about it. I don't go preaching this kind of stuff. If somebody is looking for it and needs help, I can help them. But I'm not standing on the street corner yelling at people for eating fruit or anything. But it's an inconvenient truth. Like, people want me to say, like, no, it's okay to have fruit occasionally. No, it's okay to have vegetables. What if I have just one salad a day? And it's always a question. I always just say, like, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to impact you. I don't think it's going to be good. But I didn't make the rules. Like, this is the way we evolved. Like, do it if you want, but there will be consequences, in my opinion, for doing any of that kind of stuff.
And the human body is amazing. We can cope with a whole lot of toxins, but it's just like a little bit of slow water torture. Okay, a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow, and a little bit of glycation here, and a little bit of glycation here, and a little bit of toasting, and a little bit more toasting, and a little bit more toasting, and then, oh shit, I'm unwell.
Yep.
But by the same token, the body has an incredible ability to heal. Parts of our brain can't. Well, in fact, they can heal. Now, we have the ability to slowly turn around a lot of these things. Some of them turn around very quickly, like lungs can turn around quickly, livers can turn around quickly. A misconception is that high protein diets are going to affect your kidneys. That's nonsense. I've got multiple stories of people with very poor renal function who've gone low carb keto and actually improved their renal function. Oh my God, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. But yes, they actually improve their outcome. Several papers now showing that. And so we've just got to stop this myth that eating real food causes trouble.
Yep.
Eating ultra-processed food, which is sugar, carbs, polyunsaturated seed oils, in combination is bad for us. Again, it's really simple. But as you say, I don't shovel this down people's throats unless they ask me to.
Right.
And a lot of people actually need that. I mean, I used to, in my practice, I'd actually have some people come along with their arthritic joint saying, I really want to come and see you because I want to be hammered.
Oh, wow.
I don't want a joint replacement, but I hear that you're going to give me a hard time. And I go, okay, all right. They didn't want to see me as a surgeon. They wanted to see me because I was going to give them a hard time.
Wow.
Which is sort of, because they said, I need to be told. I need that support. And Belinda uses the term SAM, support, accountability, motivation. A lot of people need SAM in their life. And how they get that varies. And so therefore, if someone needs that support, okay, but they need to be made accountable and they also need to be motivated. And that's where, people like yourself, that's what you're doing. If people find you, then you can give them SAM. And but so many people, I mean, I don't know about you, but I used to walk into a theatre tea room and people would start hiding their lunch boxes. And I can still remember a cafeteria. I came down there and because drug reps, everyone's on the take and whatever. One of the pharmacy drug reps company, I don't know, surgical reps in the tea room, and they brought 2 big cakes. And I walked into a crowded tea room there, and one of them was a thing called a pavlova, which had a whole lot of cream and fruit on the top, and the other one was a standard cake. And everyone, oh, here comes Fettke, he's come into the room. And so I said to the rep, thank you for, bringing some bribes to everyone. And I said, can I partake? And they said, everyone, look, Fettke's going to eat something. I said, I'm going to eat the healthiest thing I can see there. They thought I'd go for the fruit. So I walked up there and I looked at it and I went, thank you very much. Tore a bit of the cardboard box and ate it in front of about 50 people.
That's amazing.
But again, I went to the toilet straight away and spat it out, by the way. But it's interesting how literally, because I've taken a stand on it for so long, that literally walk into a room. Like Belinda and I think we stopped getting invited out to people's places for several years. We've got our really good friends who are, incredibly dear to us, but I think we dropped off the social cycle because Gary Fettke was only going to make everyone uncomfortable.
Wow.
Well, but that's okay. Belinda still loves me, and
that's what matters. That's what matters.
And the other thing is, if you stand your ground, what's really important is that our children respect us. Every year, particularly at Christmas time, we get the kids in and we'd have a family time and say, how are you guys going? Because I know our daughter was hopping on a plane and someone looked at a boarding pass and said, oh, Fettke, is your father Gary Fettke? And then she was a uni student, and then she started getting bagged out.
Wow.
I went, hang on, if you're going to have a crack at me, don't have a crack at my daughter.
Yeah, wow.
So we used to sort of, but I remember a couple of years ago, in the midst of all of our problems and whatever, our son and his wife, they said, because it had been a particularly noticeable year in the press, in the local press. And I said, we keep on saying, how are you guys going? Because you've got to, Fettke's not a common name, so you've got to incur that wrath as well to some degree. And our son said, oh, you've been hammered this year, Dad, but I reckon you can take more.
Awesome. I love it.
So, yeah, you're still alive. You'll be right. Just keep there. So
that's great.
But then he lives in Melbourne. He gets his workmates ring up and say, can I talk to you, Dad? I want to clarify something about cholesterol or whatever. And William said, yeah, okay. Yeah, here's Dad's email and have a chat. So
that's fantastic. Wow, that's awesome. That's such a cool message and such a great point that, fighting the fight that you fought allowed other people to continue to do that, regardless of whether you're practicing in clinic or not. Setting that example gives the right information for the people when they're ready. If they're ready, they can go and find it. And so I love that. I love the message. I do want to comment on Belinda quickly. You guys had just had an anniversary. Is that correct?
We have an anniversary every day.
Love it.
Yeah, we're 38 years married now. So I think you just had a birthday. So
I did, yeah, around the same time. Can you tell us about
your birthday? I think was you're 39. So we were well and truly already going out and up to mischief by the time you were born, mate.
That's right. That's right, you were. Tell us about your anniversary gift that you got each other.
Oh, that one. Okay, no, that was actually the year before.
The ham leg?
No, the ham. So actually, our anniversary present to each other was the smallest industrial meat slicer.
Okay, wow. That was the picture I saw. I saw that on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. So that wasn't that. I think we gave that to each other the previous.
Okay.
I think it could have been our Valentine's Day present.
Oh wow.
I get into trouble. It wasn't our Valentine. It wasn't anniversary. I get into trouble for Valentine's Day presents because people say they're not very romantic. We always had a deal right from the word go. We're not allowed to spend a lot of money. So I gave Belinda a pair of a matching set of compost buckets. as an anniversary present, which were just garden pots without without holes in the bottom. And the local radio announcer, who was doing low carb and whatever, heard that this was the worst worst Valentine's Day present someone could ever give. So he bagged me out on live radio. He wouldn't say, Dr. Gary Fettke, you wouldn't believe what he's given his wife as Valentine's present. He's given her two garden pots as compost buckets, So we gave each other a meat slicer the other year. Our other one is we gave each other one of those ceramic grillers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We said, okay, she actually looked up best barbecue grillers, / Google. Anyway, so we've actually got one of those, which is just so to cook a steak is magnificent with it. Again, we make these anniversary presents. So our last couple of big anniversaries have been a ceramic griller to each other, and the other one was this industrial meat slicer. So, but there was a Christmas ham that Belinda's sister, her workplace had one left over. So Bronwyn said, "Oh, my brother-in-law's got a meat slicer." So anyway, so therefore I'm slicing away the meat. And the deal was I got all the meat that wasn't actually on the bone, that you couldn't actually slice off.
Yep.
And I think you saw the video of me actually then feeding that to the chickens.
I did, yeah.
To check to see whether or not the chickens are actually carnivore.
Wow.
I should have taken a video the following day or a picture the following day because there's just a bone left. Those guys demolished that.
Wow. I've heard that's what they do. That's funny.
So the chickens are clearly carnivore, and
yeah, wow.
You give them a choice of meat or grain or vegetables, and it's classic, because I've done the experiment. I should video at some point in time. They'll go the meat, then they'll grow the grain for the sugar because it's carbs.
Yep.
And then they'll go the vegetables.
Wow, in that order.
Yeah, there's something in that. That's what lions do that in the wild. I use that. A lion will kill its prey and it will eat the liver, the kidney, the spleen, the brain, the fat, and it will leave the meat for hyenas.
Yep.
When we used to have a cat that used to knock off a bit of bird wildlife, and I realized that's not good, but I've planted 13,000 trees. We've got a lot of bird life that comes in.
Wow.
And so that, so I apologize to the cat used to kill the occasional bird. Anyway, it was interesting. The cat would eat the brains, eat the liver, eat the kidneys, and it would leave the meat as a carcass on the back deck. And Belinda would come out and go. And occasionally the cat would bring the carcass inside. And
Yep. My cat Lily would do the same thing.
The cat's no longer here. Anyway, so, one carcass too many. So.
Wow.
But again, if we actually look at evolution and we look at what wild animals do, let's stop kidding ourselves. We are just animals. We have exactly the same biochemistry. The same Krebs cycle keeps all life going. We're all animal-based, whether or not you're an insect, a cat, a lion, a human, a bear, a dog. We're all running on the same Krebs cycle, ATP, same different fuel sources. Well, here's just final, I don't know if it's final or whatever, but if you look at short-chain fatty, what comes up the portal vein into the liver? So what we absorb food through our gut comes into our portal vein and goes up the liver. Virtually always the same. It's short-chain fatty acids. Now, we as a human, short-chain fatty acids. Now, a cow will have a big foregut that will ferment everything into short-chain fatty acids. A gorilla will have a big hindgut that will ferment everything into short-chain fatty acids. Now, we don't have a whole big foregut, different stomachs. We don't have a big hindgut. We need to eat short-chain fatty acids to actually have them come up the portal vein to be the optimal fuel. So again, we talk about different gut lengths and why we're carnivores. We're carnivores because we don't have the foregut, we don't have the hindgut, but we are still requiring the same fuel as the cow and the chimpanzee that comes up, which is short chain fatty acids. So guess what? We have to eat them.
Yep.
So, and you just don't get all those. It's again, we're just animals. Let's accept the fact that we're animals. We need to accept what our gut has been designed for / evolved to, and we need to eat in a way that we've evolved. And becoming plant-based is actually against our evolutionary pathway.
That's right.
And it's not sustainable if we look at 93.2% of the population are metabolically unwell.
That's right.
Okay, the signs are there. It's like if you're driving down the highway and all the traffic's coming at you, you're probably on the wrong side of the road.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's such a great point. It's a great way to end this conversation. I hope that would be the takeaway for somebody like you described earlier, an individual who is listening to this maybe for the first time and wants to know what should I do? How should I do this on my own? How should I do this for my family? I would hope that would be the thought that person would realize, like, okay, I need to be taking in proteins and fats and run my metabolism in that way. And all of the things that we've talked about improving will eventually improve. And it's your message and you guys fighting through everything that happened to you that helps to carry this message along. And it's wonderful. Both of you are incredible people and have fought really hard to get that message out and suffered a lot and spent a lot of money, but you stuck with it. And it's so amazing. It's always great to talk to you. Dr. Fettke, where do you want people to go to find you and connect with you in your work?
Well, I'll sort of just finish it. I think it's actually easier to eat healthy than it is to play golf, and certainly easier than to sing well.
Very true.
To take that full cycle.
Very true.
My talks, Belinda's talks are on YouTube, because I think that's the educational side. Search us as Gary Fettke, Belinda Fettke. We're both on Twitter, and again, search us that way. I'm on fructose no, but nonetheless, you can search us pretty easily. Facebook, but Facebook, I'm concerned, has been a little bit more anyway censored.
Yeah.
And and Instagram, but most of the time we're on Twitter, or people find us. And Belinda's got a website called isupportgary.com. I've got nofructose.com. And I'll advertise. Her research is just amazing. I talk about the science, and we dovetail into each other because she understands why that science isn't going forward. And then I love the fact that the kids have always laughed about the fact that Dad will read the rules of a game. Now, ever since kids, no, you've got to play by the rules, okay. And so once you actually find out who's writing the rule books, then you can play the game. And vast majority of people have no understanding of who's writing the rule books when it comes to nutrition, health, medicine. And when you realize it's all completely manipulated, you're not going to be surprised by that. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's truth. Okay. So when you find out the guidelines and everything's been written by vested interests, particularly in the last 100 years, like our medical textbooks, completely shaped by what are called generational education. We believe our teachers and they believe their teachers and whatever. However, if they were all originally written by vested interests, we're screwed. So again, we come down to biochemistry, and then that effectively rewrites the rule books. Because you can't argue with that. You can't argue with results. You can't argue with the biochemistry.
Yep.
And I respect your opinion sometimes, but if you're wrong, I'm going to keep coming.
Yep. Yep.
And again, I'm sorry that may appear arrogant, but gosh, I've lost a lot of patience now. I suppose I'm less patient now than I was 20 years ago, 15 years ago, because I honestly thought this is a complete no-brainer. But if you can see that, if it comes down to people's health, And if they're given the wrong information for so long from so many different areas, then that's not fair.
Yeah.
But that's it. Well,
Yeah.
we're still passionate about it because it's not fair.
Yep.
And we've all got friends, family that are caught up in health issues, and certainly we've been surrounded by it in the last several months with family members and friends, and you go, one of them is in hospital, two of them are in hospital at the moment.
Wow.
Just been given really bad food, and you go, hang on, you can't possibly get healthy or recover with what they're being exposed to.
Yep. Yep.
So
No, that's a really
sending food parcels in.
Yeah, good. I do whatever it takes. Like you said, like fighting the fight that you guys fought and continue to be passionate and share this message. It's wonderful. It's the way that people can get this information. It's not going to come from the top down. It's amazing that Australia got some wins in the guidelines with the Diabetes Association, but whether that actually even pans out, who knows? And so we're just so grateful for you and Belinda and all of your work and everything you guys do.
All we're trying to do is get these concepts into guidelines so that it allows medical professionals to not live in fear of talking about them.
Yeah.
And that's our aim, to do that with diabetes, cancer, heart disease. Stop bagging out stop giving out bad information so that those people who are enlightened, particularly health professionals, can go forward and actually give that advice.
Yeah. Without worrying about what you had to go through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so that but again, that's turning out to be a full-time job.
It is.
Doing just this.
Well, I hope you didn't want to sit down and relax on some beach somewhere in your retirement. Love that you're just so active and still so passionate with all of this. And so, Dr. Gary Fettke, thank you so very much for everything that you do. And thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show today. We really, really appreciate you.
Great to catch up again, Casey. All right. Bye.
Absolutely. Mate. We'll see you. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.